Hey guys, this is Benji. We wanted to go live here on Facebook so we could connect with you and bring you up to speed on some of the things that are happening here in our world. So I'm just going to be sharing a few stories for the next few minutes and love to get your feedback. Any questions you have, I'll be checking for questions as well. But there's a couple things that have been happening here towards the end of the year that just wanted to convey. First thing is a story I want to tell you about trafficking happening right here in the Bible Belt in the middle of the Midwest. One of the things that what was that saying? One of the things that people often remark about is they can't imagine that human trafficking is something that happens in their city. And I think that's a sentiment that's particularly prominent here in the Midwest, in the middle of the Bible Belt. But I was at home on a Sunday night, and it was late at night, 10 o'clock at night, and I received a phone call. And it was a local pastor who was calling on the phone, and he said, "Hey, Benji," he said, there was a police officer from our church who was just involved in a raid. And they raided a house here in Kansas City, and they were able to rescue a girl out, and they've taken her to the emergency room. Is there anything you can do to help? And so that was kind of the nature of his call. And it turns out that this was a girl who was lured down from Omaha through some promise of a relationship. Unbeknownst to her, the guy who she was coming down here to Kansas City to be in a relationship with was a notorious pimp. And so she ends up getting trapped inside of a room, held in this room for 3 weeks. And over the course of those three weeks is raped 100 times. And told by this pimp that he's seasoning her for prostitution, that he's preparing her, and she's going to have to work for him in prostitution. And so at some point along the way, she was able to somehow get a hold of a mobile device and get a message out, and police got a tip of the neighborhood and managed to put the dots together and rescued this girl out. Thank God. This was this just happened to me on here, in Kansas City, Sunday night, local pastor calling me on the phone. This girl, police officer from our church was involved with this rescue. But it was just illuminating to me to think about and to consider the reality that we oftentimes don't see or that we forget is happening. And that is this reality that, the women behind the veil of the sex industry are predominantly not willing participants. At some point along the way, something has happened in their journey that put them in that position. And in a situation like this, we get to see very clearly the tactics used by a trafficker or a pimp, whatever, to secure somebody to come and to profit from their exploitation in the sex industry. And so it's just a powerful reminder to me, being here in Kansas City, of what we face every single day and what we face in cities across the United States. And so I just wanted to highlight that story as kind of a reality check for us, even, at this time of year, where we think, well, everyone's, celebrating the holidays, and unfortunately there's still people who are trapped in situations that are not of their choosing, and their lives are being exploited. And we want to do everything we can to help get them out of those situations and to make a difference. We've been doing a campaign here this past month. It's called Write a New Story. And you can check that out on our Exodus Cry website. And it's a campaign that's emphasizing our strategy to help shift the narrative in our culture regarding prostitution so that we can see this commercial sex industry abolished once and for all. The existence of the commercial sex industry presents a major threat to our sisters and to our daughters. And we need to do everything that we can to shift the mindset that people have regarding the commercial sex industry that allows it to flourish in our world. One story that happened recently that comes to mind is, again, this just happened just recently. I received a phone call from a mom. And I received a phone call from this mother, and she says, tells me the story. She says, we're a Christian family, raised our daughter in a good home, in a good environment. When she turned 17 years old, she began to strike up a relationship with a man online. And it was through one of the social networks. And unbeknownst to her at the time, this man was a trafficker, and he was targeting this young woman because of her look, because of whatever. And over the course of a year, through a process of grooming, through a process of brainwashing, manipulation, coercion, breaks this girl's will down. And on her 18th birthday, this girl's 18th birthday, which was this past July, it was able to lure this young girl, this unsuspecting young teenage girl, into the commercial sex industry. And now here I have this mother on the phone pleading with me about her daughter, and her husband are obviously deeply distressed over the fact that they have now lost touch with their daughter. She's been lured into the commercial sex industry, and she's reaching out saying, is there anything that you can do to help? And, so many thoughts ran through my mind as I'm speaking with this mom. And one of the thoughts is that, I don't want to live in a world where mothers are having to chase down and fight for getting their daughters out of a system of violence and exploitation like the commercial sex industry. And it deepened my resolve in that moment to persevere in shifting the narrative about the commercial sex industry so we can bring about its abolition. And I just so deeply sympathized and empathized with this mother, and as she was sharing her heart with me, the love that she has for her daughter, her husband as well, and now they're joining together and doing everything that they can to see their daughter brought out of this industry of violence and exploitation. And it's hard to even convey in words what a conversation like that does when my phone rings nowadays. There's just so much anxiety that fills my heart when I don't know the number. I don't know who's calling on the other line. Is this going to be a pastor telling me about a girl that was just captured rescued out of a home and brought to the urgent care center because she was raped 100 times in the past 3 weeks? Is this going to be a mom pleading with me to rescue her daughter out of the commercial sex industry? We have put ourselves in the front lines of this work, and it's, as long as we've been in it, it's still so deeply shocking and disturbing to learn about the injustice and the exploitation that's happening to real people in real time every single day. But the one thing that I left this conversation with, besides this resolve to help this mom find her daughter, and to stay the course in what Exodus Cry is doing in this season, but I left with this feeling, this very real feeling of, my God, this is not just a cliche saying. This could happen to my daughter. This could happen to anybody's daughter. This was a Christian family living in Texas, raised her in a good home, but yet by virtue of the dynamics of social media and technology today, her daughter was vulnerable to the deceptive, coercive recruitment tactics of a trafficker. It just blew me away. It just absolutely blew me away. There was a PhD level professor that did a study recently in Los Angeles County. And they found that in this study that the average income that each girl, each woman who was in prostitution or child that was bringing in for her pimp or trafficker was $325,000 a year. So you start to think about, how is it that this could happen to this girl or to anybody's daughter? There are criminals in our world, those who have a criminal worldview, who do not align themselves with the rule of law, who are looking at these individuals as nothing more than objects, nothing more than an opportunity to put money in their pockets. They're sociopaths. They don't have a conscience about human life. The music videos they watch are all about glorifying the sex industry and making money off of the objectified, exploited, hypersexualized women's bodies. They think that this is what it means to be successful in our world as a man. And so these men operate without impunity, virtually without hardly any culpability at all. So you think about the scenario for a guy who's of this mindset, and he thinks, well, I can go down to Mexico or South America and put myself at enormous risk to buy a kilo of cocaine, and then put myself at enormous risk to bring that kilo of cocaine back here, and then to put myself at further risk to try and sell that cocaine, and then once it's gone, and now you have to go do the whole process over again. Or I can go on Facebook and target some unsuspecting, cute young girl to think that I want to be her boyfriend and go through the whole process of recruitment to break her will down, to eventually get her to align with coming to live with you or whatever it is, only to introduce her into a life in the commercial sex industry. So for these guys, it's a business matter. It's a business transaction. And it's sobering and disturbing to think of this and to say this out, even to hear myself say this out loud. But it is a reality in our world that our daughters are being targeted in ways that we never could have imagined. Our sisters and our daughters. And I have this poor mother on the phone making an appeal to me to get her daughter out of the sex industry, something that she never would have dreamed of in her entire life. So I want to just highlight that story to you guys as well. This could happen to anyone's daughter. This ties back into the campaign that we're doing at Exodus Cry called Write a New Story. We want to swim upstream, and we want to do everything that we can to help abolish this commercial sex industry. The existence of the commercial sex industry represents a major predatory threat to our sisters and our daughters in our world, and we have to do everything we can to bring an end to it. And so I just want to just highlight that campaign again. If you go to our website, you can help contribute towards these efforts there. We have a goal of raising $100,000 here at the end of the year. We're currently at $62,000. And so if there's anything you can do to help us out to get traction in these efforts, we would so appreciate it. But I just want to lastly just highlight a few of the things that we're doing here in this season. We're releasing our new film, Liberated. It's called Liberated, Hookup Culture and the New Sexual Revolution, and we're releasing that next year. And this, again, is part of the effort to raise public awareness, to bring public education, to shift narratives in culture, to help bring about the shifting in culture, to write a new story. And so we're highlighting in this movie, we're highlighting the messages in culture about toxic sexuality and toxic masculinity, and how those are being fueled through mass media, and how the socializing impact of that on young boys and young girls growing up in this culture, how it's predisposing young boys to become predators, predisposing young girls towards becoming vulnerable to going into the sex industry. This is a major problem. And the thing we've been saying about this is we cannot bring an end to sex trafficking until we shift the pornographic culture that fuels it. And that's what this film aims to do. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about Liberated coming out. We're excited about this podcast that we've just recently launched. And if you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, we're releasing a new podcast every single week. where we're touching on all these issues in much more in-depth ways. We want to keep this conversation going, and not, before we just did our abolition summit once a year, and we decided this year we need to keep the conversation going because there's so much happening in our world right now. That just in California, I just found out that there's an effort being made, and actually in 8 states right now, there's an effort being made to fully decriminalize prostitution and to see it not only normalized, but legally embedded right here in the United States. So that, like it is in Germany and Australia and New Zealand, they would have, your local community would have mega brothels 12 stories high like Pasha in Germany, with scantily clad women along the side of these massive buildings welcoming men in to come and exploit these women in prostitution. And so there's a huge pro-sex work movement that is trying to get traction towards seeing that happen even right here in the United States. And so our podcast is part of keeping this conversation going so that we can continue to confront and address this movement and help shift and shape the narrative, the story, the way people understand the commercial sex industry. Because the whole thing is we've been told a lie. When you look at movies in Hollywood, when you look at music videos, when you hear the way the sex industry is talked about, pimping is seen as something that's a sense of like masculine achievement. Being in the sex industry is posed as something as glamorous. You see Rihanna up there twirling around on stripper poles and flinging out $100 bills, saying it's all about stripper poles and $100 bills. She has no idea what she's talking about. She has no idea the reality of the sex industry. She has no idea the exploitation that people face in that. And yet they're just recklessly advancing these narratives. And I don't mean to put all the culpability on Rihanna, but it's the whole music industry and it's our culture at large that is trying to normalize the sex industry, that is paving the way for the advancement of the pro-sex work movement. And so we're taking a strong stance against that through this campaign that we have going on right now called Write a New Story. So check that out, our website, exoduscry.com. We're also releasing a new short animated video series on this to help people really understand what prostitution is, what human trafficking is, the overlap between those, to understand the commercial sex industry. Like I said before, there are so many lies, so much deception swirling about. There's a cover narrative that's deceptive messages that's embedded in society's mindset about this issue, this industry that allows it to flourish. And our goal is to come in with these 2 to 3 minute videos that have the potential to go viral and to shift the story and the understanding of the commercial sex industry. My colleague Lila is releasing a book, which we're really excited about, and that book is on pornography. And so we're going to have that come out next year as well. And the working title is The Porn Pandemic, but it's really going to help people understand pornography, not just is this good or bad. It's not just finding out on a moral or a level, but it's looking at pornography through the lens of a human rights issue and a public health issue. And it is the best resource that has ever been written on pornography, and we're super excited to get that out. And so keep your eye out for that. And one other thing I want to mention is these TED-style talks that we have coming out, 10 to 20 minute teachings that we're going to be doing, again, to advance this narrative. It was just really this past year where we began to see how important it was for us to shift the narrative in our culture concerning the commercial sex industry, concerning prostitution, human trafficking, concerning issues of gender and sexuality and how we understand all those things. And so we have dug our heels deep this year to begin to blast out content heading into next year. And so we're just super excited about that. I wanted to come on today just to connect with you guys personally. Jessica Neely, I see you out there in your comment. We love you. And Jessica is a survivor out there and has an amazing story. But I know there's a bunch of you that are tracking with this right now, and thanks, guys, for jumping in. We wanted to connect with you personally. We wanted to let you know what's burning on our hearts. We want to let you know what's coming out this next year. And there's so many stories, there's so many things happening on an ongoing basis, and we literally just never seem to comment on them. And so I pulled our marketing guy aside and I said, Daniel, I said, I keep getting bombarded with these phone calls of moms trying to get their daughter out of the sex industry. Others. This girl's been taken rescued and taken to a local urgent care, and she needs help. And so I just felt like, man, I just need to tell people what is going on. I'm sorry for those of you that didn't get a chance to hear the 2 stories that I shared, but I think we're going to be posting this on our YouTube channel. And so anyhow, we're going to end it there, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless you guys. Thanks for checking in and tracking with this. Bye-bye.